this is capelin total or to the penguins?
This is capelin total.
Capelin total. Okay. It's got to be a couple of pallets. It's for I'm gonna say 2,300 pounds. That's probably low. 2,300 pounds a year.
All right, Dr. Keller.
I'm going to say 2.5 tons.
Okay. You are closer, though you're still both way under. It's 16,369 pounds of capelin.
Wow.
Okay.
So 4+ tons.
A lot of that's penguins.
Hey there, Podcast Aquanauts. It's your host, Casey here. Happy Thanksgiving Eve to all of you who celebrate. And if you're listening to this at some other time of year, fondest memories of Thanksgiving's past, I suppose. Right now, many of us are thinking about one of a handful of things: traffic, family, and food. While I can't make the smorgasbord get here any quicker or get you out of that argument with your uncle about chemtrail conspiracies, whatever you think, I'm sure you're right, of course. Hopefully, this episode will at least make traveling to and from easier to stomach. And speaking of bellies, it's said that an army marches on its stomach, and the same is true of aquariums and zoos. Feeding the animals is at the forefront of our animal care specialists' thoughts and is a crucial component of ensuring their health and well-being. Purchasing high-quality meat and produce is one of the largest line items in the aquarium's annual budget, and feeding our residents is literally how most days start in our buildings. In this Thanksgiving special episode, we explore all aspects of nutrition at the aquarium, from why lemurs chew with their mouths open and who our pickiest diner is, to the mysteriously universal appeal of bananas and why some animals can go months between meals. This is a meaty topic, I suppose, and we had a lot of fun talking about it. So, without further ado, let us loosen those belts and dig in, shall we? On with the podcast. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Podcast Aquatic, the official podcast of the Tennessee Aquarium. It is almost Thanksgiving. If the stars align, as they usually do, because I have complete control over the production schedule, this episode will be going live the day before Thanksgiving. So that means that a lot of you are probably thinking about food, maybe dreaming about it, planning out your menu for the big night. And I thought, what better time of the year to talk about the food that we feed our animals here at the aquarium? Because that is a pretty important part of what it takes to keep our animals healthy and happy. And to talk about that, I've got, at this point, I feel like I probably need to just put him on the payroll of the Podcast Aquatic, but Thom Demas is our Vice President and Chief Husbandry and Exhibits Officer. Or if I got that reversed, is it Exhibits and Husbandry? Or
Husbandry and Exhibits, you got it.
Exhibits. All right, good. Thom, you've been on here so many times lately talking about baby fish, and you've been talking about how we care for our older animals, and just a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be back.
Thanks for being
here. And
I'm
looking forward to the paycheck.
Next to you is another returning favorite to the show. This is Dr. Chris Keller, our staff veterinarian. And Dr. Keller, you were on here also talking about aging animal care, so it's kind of a little bit of the band is back together.
It is. I think we have to purchase a new van and get on the road. That's probably what we need to do.
Well, if it's a band, it's probably not a new van. It's probably an old beater van that's going to fall apart 5 miles down the road. And then next to you, finally, we've got Kevin Calhoun. Kevin, you were last on the show talking about the fact that you actually can maybe see mountain lions here in the hills of East Tennessee, here in southern Appalachia.
Apparently. I haven't seen one yet. My neighbors have, my friends all have, but I haven't seen one.
And Kevin, you are our curator of forests, so you represent all the animals that are not fish.
Right, not fish.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's on your business card, right?
Yeah.
Should be.
All
right. So I've sent all of you the questions in advance, so no one feels like they're caught off guard. But let's just kick things off by asking about, when we're talking about animal care, a lot of things come into play. So how does the diet and nutrition rank in terms of the contribution that makes to an animal being healthy and happy here at the aquarium?
People are looking at me, so
you're the vet.
There's always... Well, I know some mornings the way I feel, it's what I've eaten the night before. So anyway, the conversation about nutrition obviously is a huge one, and I feel like nutrition is one major part of sort of the different things we look at with respect to healthy animals, whether they're our pets, whether or not they're our livestock, or frankly, whether or not they're members of the collection at the Tennessee Aquarium. I think one of the things about the aquarium that makes it difficult and startling is that we have so many different types of animals, and what we rely on the husbandry for is a good knowledge of their natural history. And again, I think I've talked about this concept every single time I've been on a podcast with Casey, but
it bears repeating.
Yeah, it bears repeating. if you understand what the animal's doing out there in the wild, wherever they're from, whatever part of the world, whatever kind of environment they live in, and you really have to look at specifically what you think their primary diet is in the wild. We try to duplicate that as closely as we possibly can, and that puts us hopefully in a position of at least starting from a successful place.
In the wild, people think, I guess, because we are humans, and for a lot of us, eating every day is a pretty common occurrence. There's some people for whom that is not necessarily the case, but for most of us, you eat pretty much every day. And I think there is the assumption, because a lot of our pets are also fed every day, that animals must also eat every day. In the wild, that's not necessarily the case. So how often are our animals fed? Are they fed every single day? Does that depend on the species? How do we determine the schedule with which our animals are fed?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that, Casey. Not all of our animals are fed every day. Many animals in the wild don't eat every day. Some animals in the wild maybe eat every couple of weeks. It depends on the species. It depends on their lifestyle. And as Dr. Keller mentioned, we try to replicate their natural lifestyle the best we can. However, making them go those extended periods of time without eating, we don't feel is in their best interest for us to manage them as healthy as they can be managed. So, where something may go a week or so, or 10 days or 2 weeks without eating, for us, they might be on an every other day feeding or something like that. And so the animals that we care for, it's about making sure they're getting the nutrition through a varied and healthy and fresh and rich diet. It's about making sure their body shape, their morphology, their body shape is looking like it should be. We don't want them to get fat like we do as humans. We get chubby. They can have a lot of the same health issues that we have when they gain weight. If they do gain weight and we need to put them on a diet, that's hard for them just like it is for us to go on a diet. So our goal is really to maintain a healthy balance and keep everyone eating on a regular schedule. It may not be daily, but if it's something that's young, it might get fed multiple times a day. Some things do eat every day and other things maybe every other day, but it really depends on the species and the dynamic.
Well, and it sounds like the determination for that frequency kind of goes back to what Dr. Keller was talking about with natural history as well, right? So that it all kind of plays into that. So when you're deciding the frequency with which an animal is fed, is that something that is determined at the keeper level? Is it a curatorial level, like with you, Kevin, or is it a committee? Like how do we make that determination?
Well, fortunately, our staff is very experienced, and most of them we hire actually had experience before they came here. So a lot of times it is up to the staff of each area what their diets look like and how often they get fed. I was talking to Bill Hughes, our herpetology coordinator, today about a species of turtle, and he felt like we were feeding them too often, and he called his friend at the Turtle Survival Alliance and talked to him about it. So that's kind of, they talk to their colleagues. We know what Zoo Knoxville's feeding their animals a lot of times, their turtles and so on, how often they feed. So there's also husbandry manuals out there that the American Zoological Association puts out for certain animals, for lemurs and otters and penguins. So it's actually, you can look it up. You can go look it up. But we have so much experience here. A lot of times I just let them figure that out.
Okay, so they're allowed to be a little bit more autonomous than in that determination.
Yeah, they know their animals really well. Some of them don't eat as often as we think they might. Does that make sense? Or, so we have to watch out, like I said, their body. If they're getting too fat, getting too chubby, or getting too skinny, then we can manipulate the diet from there too.
So just like in the conversation that Tom, you, and Dr. Keller and I had, it really kind of comes down to, as in all things in animals' health and well-being, that the people who care for the animals are kind of that first line of defense. They're the ones who are signaling that there is an issue potentially with an animal that would then, I guess, set into action a reconsideration of how often or what kinds of foods that an animal needs to eat.
Yeah, and while our goal is to give staff that kind of autonomy, make no mistake, every food that is fed is approved by the veterinary team and the curatorial team. Yeah. It's not, they just don't decide today they're going to go buy Oreos and feed the animals. There's an approved list of foods. If they decide after speaking with colleagues that they want to try something different, there's a process whereby they get that approved. And we have folks that take advantage of that. And it's like Kevin said, we have an experienced staff. and they do a great job of enriching the lives of the animals and giving them great care. And the autonomy we afford them and the procedures we have in place to do that allow them to do that very thing because they know their animals the best.
Yeah. Well, you were kind of smirking over there, Dr. Keller.
Well, I wasn't smirking. I was interested in. I was just thinking about some things as these questions were being developed. That we always talk about, hey, what's the best dog food to feed your dog? And that's a whole different concern than what we're talking about. Where literally there are eons of research associated with what the best nutritional components are for dogs, what cats need that are different from dogs, and all those different things. And there are many companies who invested millions and billions of dollars in developing formulas that work that they can manufacture. In our settings, we rarely, if ever, have prepared or commercial diets where we could just ladle out a spoonful of some kind of chow.
Monkey chow.
Monkey chow is actually one of the ones where they do have that, as they do with trout chow and things like that. But the point is that, what we have to look at is we look at, what's available in their environment and what's the closest similar thing that we can acquire from our regular produce or seafood or, meat distributors so that we could kind of align those. But one of the things that I think that always happens too is we always make assumptions. This is very, very difficult to replicate. We always make assumptions that a really varied diet is healthy, and it is. But it's so rare in the wild that an animal has an opportunity to eat a varied diet of the same thing year round. There's seasonality to every single thing that they get their hands on. And animals by rote, if they weren't opportunistic and they weren't versatile, they wouldn't survive. So during certain times of the year, this particular plant is in season, they're able to eat that, and later on there's a completely different thing and the original plant they were eating has died off, or there might be a certain fruit that comes in season, and it's the same thing with predators too. There are years when there's lots and lots of baby things to prey on, and they're able to munch on those pretty consistently and successfully, and then there are years where they have to go a different direction.
So you don't turn down a gazelle because you really feel more like an okapi.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yes. Well, the okapi might be a stretch, but yeah. It's kind of like Farley Mowat, the Never Cry Wolf book, if you remember that one. They all talked about how the caribou came through basically twice a year, and they gorged on caribou. These are wolves, by the way. Gorged on caribou, whatever, and said, what did they eat the other, 11 months out of the year? It was basically mice, and Farley Mowat was the one that was able to figure that all out, and the importance of a whole lot of tiny little mice was just as sustaining as one caribou was over the course of time. So it's another aspect of this that we kind of have to look at.
So you mentioned that pre-prepared diet and the fact that there is something like monkey chow or, turtle chow or whatever. There are chows that exist that can be fed to some animals. What benefit is there to feeding an animal something that is more like a raw produce, like something like a fruit or a vegetable that maybe has the same nutrients that the chow has, that's been formulated specifically to meet all those dietary needs, if that exists? What benefit is there to the animal to giving them something that is a little that's not processed, that is just a natural example of a foodstuff?
There's obviously huge advantages in a lot of respects because, number one, there's more enrichment. If there was a big ladle full of stuff that they could put on your plate and you had to eat that literally every day, it's like hospital food or prison food, I assume, those sorts of things. Just a big ladle of stuff and it was complete, 100%, you'd be healthy, your hair would be shiny, your skin would look good, you'd have a bounce in your step, and you'd eat it every day. You'd still want to have something that had more variety, more flavors, more tastes, what have you. And quite honestly, that's one of the advantages of feeding fresh produce and all those things is that even texturally, everything's different. So there's advantages for the animals emotionally and mentally as well.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the seasonality, so things being available at certain times of year that maybe are not at others. How do we replicate? We talk about seasonality in other respects here at the aquarium in the past on this show, talking about things like photo periods, so changing the amount of light that an exhibit gets to replicate the shifting, the shortening or lengthening of the day. And the changing of the temperature obviously is something that would be also kind of wrapped up in that. how often do we make dietary changes based on a seasonal behavioral shift? And I'm thinking about specifically something like, Kevin, the penguins, for instance. So they go through an annual cycle that we have talked about on this show through the breeding season and molting and that sort of thing. And that feels like, from my observations and stories that I've told for us, that also has wrapped up in that and threaded into that a change in the kinds of things they're eating and how much they're eating.
Well, actually, penguins in many ways tell us what they need, and of course we do have a very strict lighting system in the exhibit. It's the same as here, but the days get shorter as the winter goes on and so on. So there are times when the penguins eat a lot more than other times. So when they get down to their breeding season, which is usually August, September, even to October, and they start to get into their molt, they eat like crazy. I mean, they just stuff themselves. We don't really regulate. We just kind of eat till they're done. But then once they start molting, some of them almost complete, which is a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Some of them quit eating completely. Some of them still want to eat. So we just kind of let them, we kind of offer them food, and if they want to take some, then they kind of let us know what they need. And then once they're done molting, they'll start eating again, and there'll be more of a maintaining diet until breeding season. So they're an interesting animal because they kind of tell us how much they need. And we're not that concerned with them getting overly fat. So that's not really been a problem with the penguin collection.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm going to make sure that in the show notes I include this because I have a video of, I think it was Bacon, who is one of our small macaroni penguins, yes. My favorite penguin, for the record. In that pre-molt feeding frenzy, putting away just an absolutely almost obscene amount. It was like watching your uncle go back for like
they do get fat then.
Yeah, they do, and she does. I mean, you said you said we don't like them to get fat.
Well, no, in that situation, it's
she looks dumpy like a little.
It looks like a marshmallow or a bowling ball, but they need that because they're not gonna eat a lot for the next few weeks. So that takes off.
Well, in that molt, we mentioned the molt. So the molt is where they're it's called a catastrophic molt, right? Mm-hmm. And, which sounds pretty intense because it kind of is.
Catastrophic.
Yeah. And they're losing basically all of their feathers, right? And getting new ones. So they can't really be in the water at that point, right?
Some of them do pop in, but it's better for them not to. They're not really waterproof at that point.
And they're grumpy, so they're just like anger. They're like angrily just stuffing their face.
They look miserable all the time. Yeah.
Who doesn't seek solace in food every once in a while? So
that's true.
Okay, so looking at and I've got a list of foodstuffs that we get every year that I'm going to quiz the two of you on. All three of you on, though I think that we might have a ringer here at in the conversation who has the list of the number, the quantity, and variety of things that we feed the animals here at the aquarium every year. And I'll ask you about that later. But the thing that is sort of uniform about all the different things that we get is the quality of food that we get. So can you talk about why we purchase the quality of food that we do, because it is very high quality, why that's important, and whether it makes any impact on whether the animals would eat it otherwise, like would they eat a lower quality of this food? What kind of difference does that make to their nutrition and their well-being? Yeah,
well, I think we're talking about fresh food, freshly frozen food, and that sort of thing. And so take frozen fish. The fish comes in, we look at it. Most of what we feed has been inspected at landing for restaurant quality. That means it's for human consumption. We do have a few suppliers where we are able to purchase fresh catch and frozen seafood that is landed for non-human consumption. And it's a big difference in the level of inspection that it gets, and it's a price difference. And there are a few vendors we know that do a good job with certain species, and we do buy some of those. But when those animals get here, those frozen fish get here, when we're thawing them, we're looking at the quality of the lens of their eye, right? Is it cloudy or is it clear? Do they look like they have a lot of hemorrhaging? As they're thawing, of course they're slimy. They're fish, right? They've got their slime, but is it excessive? Is there a bad odor about it? So there's all these things we look at. So to get to the answer to your question, when you bring in a high quality food, regardless of how it was inspected, you know that it's not loaded with bad bacteria. It's not loaded even with any bacteria. It's got the bacteria that should be there, not an exploded population. When you make Thanksgiving dinner and you let the turkey hang around too long in the kitchen, in the fridge, and then you pull it out a week later and make a turkey sandwich and it smells bad and it tastes funny, that's exactly what we don't want to give our animals. So making sure when that food comes in that it's clean, it's handled and stored properly, it's looked at and ensured to be in good condition, and then it's managed properly during preparation with washing it or rinsing it, and how it's handled and stored until it's fed is all a huge component of ensuring that the diet we feed is healthy and safe for the animals.
So that variety that I mentioned earlier, how often do we add new things to the menu?
So I'll let Kevin and Dr. Keller address this after I say what I'm about to say, which is going back to what Dr. Keller said about seasonality. During the year, we place large orders to have seafood brought in. It's more economical. It saves on shipping. And we have large freezers. We're able to store it in pallets. And what's available right now might be different than what's available in February and what's available. So part of what drives the choices is what is actually available. So that applies to seafood. It applies to produce. So I'll just say that as a foundation.
Right. Yeah, produce on my end, the forest staff, we are the ones that order the produce. So the same trucks that go to the restaurants come here. And it took us a while to find, I'm not going to use any names of produce companies, but we found a company that we really like because they bring us the right amount. Even in the wintertime when like romaine lettuce gets harder to find, it's more expensive. They bring us lettuce that's not drippy and old and rotten. We know what we're going to get from them. Problem is a lot of times with these trucks, you have to buy in bulk. So if we wanted some strawberries off season or something, we might have to go to a grocery store and purchase those. So, and they will go to a grocery store, buy a few fruits or vegetables we can't get from the produce just to change things up a little bit. So, but produce is, fresh produce, like Tom said, in good shape is really important to us. So we know what companies we like. We use one company we've had for years. They've done a great job with us. So.
Dr. Keller, anything to add to that?
Yeah, there's another interesting conversation that we can have too. In wild settings, you have times of the year where animals literally go off feed. And they refer to it as brumation. Particularly reptiles are responsible for this sort of thing. I mean, metabolically, when temperatures and or humidity are at the right levels to where their body somehow is set up to appreciate the fact that prey items and or vegetation that they'd be eating, whatever, is diminished. It's at a very, very low ebb. So rather than have them up with their metabolism just storming and them craving food that they simply can't locate, the body, in a way similar to hibernation in mammals, but not exactly the same, they go into what's called brumation. Some animals brumate during the summer months when it's really hot and dry. Some animals brumate more, in the winter months when it's cool and there's difficulty. Anytime when you have a difficult time locating your food source, and those particular animals in an aquarium setting, frequently we can't have inactive animals that aren't good exhibits. They don't look happy. They're just sort of hunkered down, waiting for spring to come. And so many times we make sure that the humidity that keeps them going and the temperatures that keep them going are present in a more significant fashion all through the year. But it's funny, like the world famous case, and we see it, we don't have ball pythons in our collection with the exception of, I think, a couple of the education animals, the ambassador animals. Ball pythons frequently come to my office and they haven't eaten in 5 or 6 months, and people are panicked. Of course, they hadn't come for the first, second, or third month. They only come at 5 or 6 months. But the point is that those snakes are actually set up for that. They live in a sort of a tropical locale, and when the humidity's low and there's not a lot of prey items around, they're just like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and just chill out. I'm not going to fall completely asleep, but I'm going to lay in my hammock until it gets hot and my metabolism increases, and then I'll actively feed again. So you will see that. So people will come to me in my private practice with, a snake that hasn't eaten in 5 months. I'm like, okay, they're fine. We just have to figure out, if you want to have them eating all year round, how to simulate the environment that they need to do that.
So there are probably people listening to this, including myself, who, you go a day even without eating, and you're ornery, you're not fun to be around. You feel like you just want to eat everything that comes into view. As someone who cares for these animals, and I guess I'm looking more specifically at you since we have been talking about reptiles, Kevin, but is it difficult, even knowing the natural history of that animal supports that behavior, to see an animal that has gone so long without food when we ourselves are so dependent on regularly eating? Is it difficult to reconcile our natural history with the natural history of an animal that maybe is eating less frequently?
Well, with reptiles, amphibians, I mean, most have been working with them so long, that's just this, we understand that's part of their lifestyle. And if they look good, if their bodies maintain the right amount of fat and so on, it's not a concern. Obviously, if it goes on, I don't know. I mean, we know each animal. If it goes on way too long, then maybe there's a blockage or something like that. But most of the time, it's just because they're not ready to eat. And we do put some of our animals, like our spotted turtles, we'll put into, they're a temperate animal, so we pretty much want to keep them the same temperatures that we have here. So we'll put some on the top of the cove where it's just mildly heated or cooled and let them live out their lives there with the seasons that they get in the environment there. So we're not controlling. So in the winter months, when it cools off, they'll eat. They'll naturally, like Dr. Keller's talking about, they don't actually brumate, but they'll eat a lot less. Be moving. So it's a natural thing with them.
And I'll add one thing to that, Kevin. Our sharks are one that often will go off food for a bit. And a couple things I want to get at. One, doesn't mean we stop offering them food, right? And we want them to be ready to have it when they're ready to have it. And so we absolutely have to keep good husbandry. But your question was, how do we feel about it?
Yeah.
And what I will tell you is a good biologist will put their emotions on the shelf. They'll study the natural history, and they will look at that animal, and they will say, this is the time when this animal's not supposed to eat. Now's when I've got to do my job and not let my emotions and feelings drive me in the wrong direction. Today's the day I got to offer food knowing he's not going to eat. I've got to have and we document everything. I've got to document that in my daily notes. We've got to follow up on what happened next week when we have our meeting, see where we are. And we've got to do what's right by these animals. And we can't let our emotions drive our actions. We have to let our knowledge, and we have to be consistent with what the natural history is to reach the best outcome for those animals.
So clinical distance then.
Absolutely.
You had an expression on your face again, Dr. Keller.
Yeah.
I'm just narrating for anyone who can't see these expressions.
I'm a very expressive individual. So one of the things that's fascinating, and I apologize for always pulling up these sort of non-professional side notes that I get from people who love their animals dearly, but they're in a private practice setting, and they frequently will come to me and say, and if they were talking to their pediatrician, they'd probably say the same thing. My 22-month-old really doesn't want to eat XYZ, but boy, he'll really eat pizza and hot dogs and French fries and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, first of all, you don't allow your child to tell you what they're going to eat, and you don't allow your pet to tell you what you're going to eat. So frequently I'll get birds in. I'll get conures or macaws or whatever else, and they'll come in, well, he only eats seeds. I'm like, well, what probably happened is he probably only was fed seeds because that's what he liked. And so now he's telling you what he wants to eat rather than, the more balanced diet that includes fruits and vegetables and dark green leafies and all those things that we know are important to our well-being. And it's funny because like Tom's saying, that distance of being able to understand, you got to feed them what they're supposed to have. There are things they really love, and to be honest with you, we kind of reserve those for when you have to wrap a pill up or give them some medicine because we know they're always going to take it. But the point is that you want to provide that very diet, much like they'd have in the wild, or else they'll start telling you the junk food that they want to eat.
That's true. So you mentioned I don't want to say weaponizing food, but using food strategically. We talked about it earlier being used as part of enrichment. And I think a good percentage of our food does seem like it has a role, an important role, a central role in our enrichment. So can you talk about how much of the food that we give to the animals is really not just about nutrition, but about making them live a stimulated and varied life?
I mean, we do feed pellets and so on. We talked about commercial pellets, but that's just a part of what we feed them. I mean, many times they do eat chomping. If you watch the lemurs eating a romaine lettuce, you see no animal more happy and satisfied than that. It's just holding something in their hands and munching on it is psychological. I call it psychological food.
And they cannot close their mouths. Just if you ever watch them, they're not being rude. They are physically incapable of
They look
closing
like
their mouths.
Muppets when they're eating, and food falls out as they're eating.
But the gusto they show when they're eating is some of my favorite animals. And watch an otter eat anything. I mean, a fish or something. They are But we do feed, like turtle brittle is a good example. It's a commercial pellet, and it's really good nutritionally. But that's just part of what we feed them every day. But some of them like it better than anything else. I mean, I don't know why, but some of them do like it better. But almost everything, like I said, I call it psychological food. We give them stuff to chew on, to play up, to visually. Birds are very visual. They like color. They like size. Berries, they like round things. So a lot of it's for their mental state too, not just their.
So one of the things that we refer to all the time too, especially with training, when we're trying to teach them behaviors that we want them to replicate, like whether it's a medical behavior where we want them to be able to hold still while we, do some sort of therapy with the cold laser or something like that. But basically, valued foods that they really dig. You don't just give them to them every day to where they're no longer valued. They get to where they're, so overstuffed and feel so good about themselves that they're always going to have access to it. But you reserve some of those things to get them to do certain things, to jump through whatever hoop you want them to jump through, so that it benefits our ability to take care of them.
You get all A's on your report card. That's when you get the pizza party.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. And it's not a withholding thing. It's just making sure the favorite thing isn't overused.
It's being smart about it. Every parent who's listening to this understands the notion of using food, and
every good parent
understands using that pizza can be a reward, and it can encourage good behavior. So thinking back to the time, Thom and Kevin, I guess more directly, since this was prior to your current roles, you were day-to-day caring for the animals. So how much of a caretaker's day, of our animal care specialist day or aquarist day, is taken up with food, either preparing it or giving it to the animals?
Wow.
It feels like a lot.
It is a lot. I'd say almost half for some of the keepers.
Wow.
With turtles and so on, and some of the animals that don't eat as often, maybe 3 days a week where that's a really busy day getting food prepped and so on. But obviously with penguins, every day we're in there washing fish and weighing it out and feeding them. And it's maybe more than half of their time with penguins. With otters, same way. If you watch our staff making the diets, it's amazing to watch them because they're weighing everything out and they're making sure everything in every bowl is, because every otter we has a different amount they feed every day. So they have to look and see so-and-so's getting this, Sunshine's getting this much fish and this much meat today. And so it's a lot of their time. I'd say probably 50% of their time.
Well, and I mean, I guess you got to think in terms of mouth size, right? So not every mouth is made equal, and some mouths are smaller than others, and some mouths need the food cut into smaller bits than others. The knife skills of our aquarists and our forestry staff, honestly, it's like you leave this job with skills you never knew you were going to have when you started it.
Absolutely. And I'll just add one thing to what Kevin said. What goes up must come down, right? And when they eat, that has to go somewhere. And
everybody
there's another big section of time spent dealing with literally what comes out the other end.
You can say poop on the show. It's all right.
Okay. Thanks for that. So I mean, a fair amount of time making sure the food's prepped and feeding the animal, but making sure the environment you're feeding them in is clean and prepared for them to receive the meal. I mean, it's a lot of work to create the healthy, people like to use the word happy, a healthy and happy environment. It takes a lot of work.
The Podcast Aquatic is made possible by support from the Tennessee Conservationist, the official magazine of Tennessee State Parks. This holiday season, give a gift that gets opened again and again. Printed sustainably, each issue of the Tennessee Conservationist is filled with fascinating stories about Tennessee's native species, rich history, and unique culture. Give a year subscription to your favorite outdoor enthusiast for just $20 at tnconservationist.org. Eating typically takes place, it seems like kind of before open, so that kind of the day starts, it feels like, with for a lot of the animals with kind of breakfast, right? I mean, some exhibits are different, but...
Yes, I mean, most of the forest staff exhibits are fed before we open, but we do save, like the turtle nursery, for example, many times we'll feed while the public is here, because they like to watch the baby turtles eating turtle brittle with their lettuce and so on. So we're not always that concerned about... Well, of course, with the otters, most of their diet is eaten in the backup area. We do throw some out for enrichment, but most of it's eaten in the backup area earlier on. So I'd say most of the areas are fed before we open, but some we wait until people are there.
Yeah, and you can purchase a behind-the-scenes deeper dives tour here at the aquarium, and part of that experience for one of them, I think it's the Feeding Frenzy tour, is to go and watch us feed our largest exhibit, the Secret Reef, which is 618,000 gallons. It's about the size of an NBA basketball court. It's about 33 feet deep. It's a lot of animals. And the cool thing about that one is not only can you take part in feeding the animals, which is interesting in and of itself, but just the various ways that we have, the different methods we use to feed that one exhibit show off how creative we have to be and reactive we have to be to that different natural history and the different ways those animals eat. Tom, you were talking about sharks. There are different approaches to feeding, like there's broadcast feeding where you're kind of just taking a scoopful or a handful of different kinds of food and throwing it in the water for whoever can eat it will eat it. Then you've got throwing lettuce in for the sea turtle, for Stewie, that people can do. We lower down kind of cornucopias, I guess, of vegetables for Stewie, and apparently a lot of the fish to eat as well.
Correct.
We hand feed the stingrays. I mean, the sharks you target feed. That exhibit just seems like an exceptionally complicated one when it comes to mealtime.
It is. I mean, you keep in mind a lot of those fish are either omnivorous, meaning they eat everything, or carnivorous, meaning they eat other animals. And fish eat each other. So when you have a multi-taxa exhibit like that, what you have to do is make sure you get them separate from each other and you get them fed up on what they're supposed to eat and you get them satiated so that between now and the next meal, it's not worth the effort to hunt, right? And as long as you can maintain that balance, you can have great success. When we first opened that exhibit, we were feeding the sharks 4 days a week, and we realized it took a while to figure it out. If we dropped to feeding the sharks 3 days a week, we could get more food per feeding and get them to accept it better and get them to be less likely to hunt in the exhibit rather than feeding them 4 days a week.
Yeah.
So it's about finding out what works for the animals, and then of course we have to watch their body condition and make sure we're not making our sharks fat. Because if I have to put my shark on a diet, he's going to really want to eat all his tank mates. So we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, that is a question that I hear or have seen on social media more than almost any others. How do you keep the sharks from eating the other fish? And it really comes down to what you're talking about.
That's exactly it. Feed them until they're satiated enough. It's not worth to hunt until they get fed again. Now, if we said, okay, we're not going to feed the tank for a month, they'd be hunting real hard, probably in a week or 10 days, real hard. We would never do that. That would not be good for them. It wouldn't be good for the exhibit. It wouldn't be good for anybody. But if, we didn't feed them, that's exactly what would happen. So the trick is keeping that balance where they're full enough, but they're not getting fat, but they're not needing to hunt.
And the animal care specialist, when it comes to those animals that are target fed, like the sharks, or I guess like the penguins, it feels like they keep really exact records because they're doing it literally by hand. It's very easy to know what each individual animal, exactly how much that animal eats. Does it make your job harder, Dr. Keller, when it comes to looking at nutrition, to not have an exact record maybe of for an animal that maybe is fed through like a broadcast feed, and you can't be exactly sure how much or what they're eating, versus an animal that's maybe target fed where you have that exact record of their diet down to every last ounce?
Yeah, it's really important to appreciate that there are certain, for example, in the fish where there's large populations of similar fish or similarly sized fish, and you can watch to see that the majority of them get up and grab something. Sometimes there's an animal that's just hanging back and doesn't want to eat, and you kind of don't notice it at first until you begin to see changes in the way they look and their overall body condition and score, or whether or not their skin's not looking as well and they're not as engaged with their tank mates. And it's kind of a little bit later in the game than you would if you were hand feeding an animal individually. Say a big marine toad down in the education department has been eating just gluttonously for months and months and months, and then all of a sudden it's not eating for a couple, 3 or 4 days. It's like, well, you know what? That might not be a bad thing. But if that continues for 3 or 4 weeks, then there's something going on because there's no previous history of that having happened. So, we have to kind of look at, okay, this is par for the course, or this is a really rare occurrence for that animal, or perhaps we haven't seen it before. So you react on the basis of the history. And, like I said, the keepers really know their individual animals. And one of the things that you have to fall back on, because the veterinary staff can't be witnessing every single feeding every single day. You really do rely on the people that, quote unquote, know the animals well. Yeah. And so that's a big part of it.
Let's talk about some of the weird things that we feed our animals, and just in general, the kinds of ways that our animals eat, because we talked a lot about it from the perspective of animal care, but I think people... a lot of people who are listening to this probably have their own pets, and they've laughed at videos of their dog coming, running from the other side of the house and skidding on the linoleum and like they're running on ice to get to the food bowl. Some of our animals are just really enthusiastic eaters too, and I wanted to know from each of you, who is your favorite animal to watch eat? Who is the most amusing or maybe shocking to watch eat that would surprise people who are listening to this who don't work with them every day?
Well, I was talking about the lemurs earlier, and just the gusto they eat with romaine lettuce is fun to watch. Tortoises are fun to watch, too, because they usually get food all over their faces, and sometimes they're putting their feet there and holding it down. So turtles eating, period, I find really interesting.
Yeah, turtles are like the messiest
very
eaters.
Messy, yeah.
Yeah, even they eat the I don't know what the red stuff is that we feed them.
Leaf eater diet, probably.
Leaf eater diet.
Which is a primate food, by the way.
Turtle chow.
There you go.
Just all over their face. I mean, it looks like when you give a kid their 1-year-old birthday cake, and they just shove just all 3% of it ends up in their mouth, and the rest of it ends up on their face. It's kind of what it's like watching a turtle.
With the rated tortoises, sometimes that's poop, because they do eat the lemur poop sometimes, as they do in the wild. We talk about natural history. That's one of the things they eat in the wild.
Well, and stick around at Secret Reef, because you'll see it might as well be the dinner bell being rung when an animal evacuates.
Well, speaking of dinner bell, that's one of my favorite things to see. And I'm sure a lot of our guests have seen it. They may or may not have known. But when we roll the carts across the floor to start setting up to feed the Secret Reef, you can see all the fish start going to their feeding stations, because they hear that sound of the cart and they know it's dinner time. And it's not even the feeding part that tickles me so much as they've figured out the sounds in their environment. They know what that means, and it's time, and they react. Yeah. It's fascinating.
Dr. Keller, do you have a favorite animal to watch when it's time to eat?
I put a mirror in front of myself as I'm eating a cheeseburger.
Yeah, there you go.
But,
we've all seen that, by the way.
Honestly, no, yeah. They all have their own individual quirks and wonderful things about it. And it's kind of like saying, do you have a favorite animal? When I've worked on tens of thousands of different types of animals over the years. But yeah, honestly, I love watching the otters too, and it's funny too because people don't recognize. We obviously feed the otters fish, but we also give them carrots. We give them vegetables, and to see them gnaw on a carrot for a period of time, it's kind of unusual, and it's fun to watch that. Gosh, it's tough. I think, I just enjoy watching all of them.
I mentioned enrichment earlier, and we have an animal care specialist. She's the lead animal care specialist for the River Journey building, Jennifer McFeeters, who has been on the show numerous times as well. And she is an excellent, quote, cake maker. She likes to bake, quote, again, quote, cakes for the otters that are, before starting to work here, I'd never heard of a clam tongue before. And you would not want these cakes, I hope.
They're probably delicious.
Clam tongue is a real delicacy.
Yeah,
you can get clam tongue tacos at the little Mexican place down the street.
Casey.
Yeah,
So now
very spoiled.
Now I can't tell if you're kidding. Or,
no, we're not.
We're
all three of us aren't that smart together.
Yeah.
Really? So, okay, well, all right. So you look at these cakes that she makes, and they're made with kind of frozen layers with food trapped inside. So it's kind of like a Jell-O salad. If you remember being in the 80s and everyone had Jell-O salad with fruit on the inside.
I was in my 40s in the 80s. Yes, I remember.
Same here.
And she makes frosting that is made with kind of ground up bananas and clam tongues. So watching the otters, they are just a hoot to watch. They are enthusiastic. When the doors open, basically after she's put out those cakes that we put out for enrichment, and they just absolutely go ham on it. That cake might be on the ground where it was supposed to be for about 8 seconds. About 15. One car commercial into that enrichment session, half the cake's in the water, and then the rest of it's on a pile of snow that we made for them. That they're just like having the best time in the world. I love to watch so many of the animals eat. I've been privileged because of my job to just be around for a lot of these enrichment sessions. I love to watch the alligator snapping turtle eat a cupcake that, again, you would never, ever want to have, which has a little mouse tail sticking out of the top of it. Those are a lot of fun. Our puffer fish is a lot of fun to watch, too. They have these teeth that... You just, oh man, you would not want to be bit by a pufferfish, judging by how they can just cut right through these clamshells, just snap them as if they aren't even there, and they are hilarious to watch. And gosh, watching a pipefish eat, just the way that fused jaw that they've got, how they just kind of the food just disappears like in one split second, it's just gone. Just suck it in. And the arapaima, watching them eat too, is hilarious for the same reason.
The pipefish thing is called a snick. When they suck it in, that's called a snick.
Like really?
Yeah. So
again, I can't tell if you guys are all so funny. I don't know if you're just making
no. It's
jokes.
called and so sometimes if you've got an older animal or a sick animal, one of the symptoms can be they have a weak snick. In other words, their suction to suck in that shrimp or whatever isn't strong enough, and that's called a snick.
I mean, it sounds like something Dr. Seuss would come up with.
It does.
One of my favorite things that I always say, and it's sometimes I feel like it's redundant, and I say it all the time, and people are waiting for me to say it, or maybe they want to just, okay, he's going to say that. When we're looking at an animal that may be a little bit out of sorts and might be having a little bit of problem, a little bit wobbly, or a little bit queasy, or a little bit sleepy, or any of those different things that are really non-specific signs, I always come out with, are they eating? And because if you're well enough to eat, you're usually well enough to have us continue to observe or work through something. And that's always one of the first things I say is, are they eating? Because that's a strong indication whether or not they're well.
Yeah, when you're feeling sick, I mean, the time I go probably the longest between meals is when I'm just not feeling good, and I can't be bothered to go and raid the refrigerator.
So that's one of the things we always do. So anyway,
and I mean, it's one thing you stub your toe, you break your ankle, you don't get around well, you don't look good, but you're still hungry, and it's just like with the animals, they can have a problem and you're not sure what's going on, but like Dr. Keller said, if they're eating strong. All right, let's really use our observation skills. Let's really monitor this animal. Let's figure out what's going on so we can help it. But let's not call a 911 here and turn the world upside down when the animal's behaving normally otherwise.
Yeah.
I think personally, I'm worried that one day, like I'll be on my deathbed, and my heart will stop beating. I'll take my last breath, and then I'll reach over and eat a ham sandwich, and then that'll be it. Because that whole is he eating thing is always going to be the case for me. So,
well, so we mentioned earlier, kind of tongue in cheek, that a lion wouldn't turn down a gazelle if it was really jonesing for something else. But there are animals at the aquarium that actually are pretty picky eaters. And again, I keep going back to the penguins, but another thing that's interesting to watch is that a penguin will literally turn down one fish because they just don't like how it looks or how it's shaped.
If it's bent or if it's broken or they just don't like the way it looks, they'll just reject it. And in the wild, of course, they would be doing that.
I was about to say, is that something that they would also do on the Antarctic islands?
No.
Or?
No, they wouldn't be doing. Of course, most are eating mostly krill. We have very spoiled penguins eating fish. We also have some of the biggest penguins I've ever seen. We have the biggest gentoos I've seen anywhere in the world.
But healthy. They're
very healthy because
healthy
they're eating a wonderful diet. But they're so spoiled with their fish. It's pretty. We give the broken fish to the aquarists to feed their fish. So.
That's actually true.
We're
true.
Yeah, we're second
Let
tier
the octopus
here.
eat some of that broken fish.
Well, and the other ones who are really picky are the lemurs. So my wife and I love to watch when it comes time to feed the lemurs. Again, you mentioned lettuce. They love lettuce, but they are so picky. They'll literally look at one leaf of lettuce and just throw it down. Yeah. And the radiated tortoises that are also in that exhibit, I think they love that because then they get a free meal. But it's just hilarious to watch the lemurs just pick up one piece of lettuce and look at it and then just decide that it's not quite good enough and keep going back until they find one that is just perfect.
Yeah, that's true. But you know what they all like are bananas. Lemurs go crazy for bananas. And unfortunately, they're really sugary and they can get obese on bananas. But that's one thing that every lemur will eat, no matter who it is, anytime we eat a banana. I think bananas, that's true for many of our animals, that even otters.
There's animals that for no reason in the world should ever have come in contact with a banana. Like
and they love bananas.
Turtles eat bananas
they
like
love
crazy.
Bananas,
There's not a lot of bananas growing in the eastern United States.
Even carnivores, even gulping down bananas. So.
So speaking of bananas, let's transition into the quiz time part of today's episode. And Dr. Keller may end up having to leave in the middle of this. I'm not entirely sure. He has other obligations that he said were more important than talking about this.
I can't believe that.
But I do have a list from our registrar of the aquarium's annual food budget broken down by each individual item. And I would like to get you both to guess, assuming that you haven't also cheated, as Kevin has done.
I cheated
and looked at how many of each individual item we get. But speaking of bananas, how many bananas did we buy this year? It's in pounds. I'll tell you, it's in pounds.
I feel like this is Jeopardy a little bit.
I know.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to say we bought 378 pounds.
No, I'm going to say. Geez, every time I probably eat that many bananas a year. Let's go ahead and say 2,200 pounds.
Okay. That one, actually, I'm surprised. It's a lot less than that.
Yeah. Oh, really? Think about it, though. We don't really feed bananas as part of their diet anymore.
I thought you just said that you feed bananas to everybody all the time.
I said everybody likes bananas. I didn't say... We had...
Bananas are the pizza party.
Well, I easily eat 2,200 pounds.
We had large numbers of birds. We were feeding a lot of bananas, and we're not feeding.
I know about 2 pounds a week, easy.
So guess what it is? You guys are way too high.
120.
How much?
30 pounds.
Oh, that's pathetic.
I'm just got what.
You're lying.
Well, I don't even know how much a banana weighs. What's the average banana
You think
weigh?
Christina is lying of all people that we know?
No, but I mean, how much does an average banana weigh?
I'm just reading the paper.
How much does I'm just trying to, what's a bunch of bananas? If there's 8 bananas, is that 8 pounds?
I'm just telling what's on the paper.
8 is a banana a pound? Yeah, I don't know.
But
that was a bad
animal
guess.
that we eat, we do feed the tortoises bananas, some, but it's all those little tiny pieces.
Okay, so the point is you're depriving them of their favorite food.
No,
okay.
We're being...
Let's shift over to, we've mentioned lettuce a couple of times. How many counts of lettuce? This is how many heads of romaine lettuce do we feed our animals in a year?
I eat about 3 a week.
You do not.
No, I'm gonna.
Remember, folks, these are the experts who are in charge of caring for our animals.
Cases, right?
No, these are just individual counts.
Counts per heads.
Oh my God!
I'm gonna let you
thousands.
mess up first.
It's thousands. I mean, we feed a whole case to Secret Reef 3 times a week.
It may not be as high as you think.
Keep going with the information.
I'm not sure how many are in a case. I could maybe do some math. Let's say 24, 100. Let's. I'll say 2,900.
Okay.
2,900 heads of romaine.
All right.
You have a poker face. This is unfortunate because you have the answer and you're not giving it up. Okay, I'm going to say, what did you say, 2,900?
I did.
2,901.
I knew you were going to price this right at. Wow. No,
you guys are way low.
It's significantly higher than that. 6,504 heads of lettuce.
I think the bananas in that got transposed. I'm sorry.
Maybe you'll do better at seafood. So, Tom is a seafood guy. You deal with fish?
I used to buy all our seafood, but it's been a long time.
Mm-hmm. All right. So how many capelin? So we talked about capelin being something that we feed to the penguins.
Are we back to individual capelin or pounds of capelin?
This is pounds. How many pounds of capelin do we? And that's a small fish, to be clear. If you've never heard of capelin.
Do I answer in tons or in pounds?
You can tell me in tons, and I could convert this to tons.
It's got to be a couple of tons or more. It's got to be. This is capelin total or to the penguins?
This is capelin total.
Capelin total. Okay, it's got to be a couple of pallets. It's for I'm gonna say right at I'm going to say 2,300 pounds. That's probably low. 2,300 pounds a year.
All right. Dr. Keller?
I'm going to say 2.5 tons.
Okay. You are closer, though you're still both way under. It's 16,369 pounds of capelin.
Wow.
Okay.
So 4+ tons.
A lot of that's penguins.
No,
Yeah.
8+
Jamming
tons.
that
I'm
stuff
trying to do the
8
math.
tons. Yeah,
8
8
tons is
tons.
a
You
lot.
understand all I do is surgery. I don't cut up fish, right? You get that.
I know, but you said the diet is a hugely
It is.
important
It
part
is.
of the animal.
It
So-
is.
Point.
Sure.
So I'm assuming
And we
that
do
you-
have over 13,000 animals, but I know we're not feeding anything we've mentioned to the brine shrimp or the larval fish. So got to
right.
keep that in mind.
So we have rainbow trout that we exhibit, but we also feed some rainbow trout to other animals. So how many pounds of rainbow trout do we feed in a given year?
Oh, gosh. That's a more specialty. I have no idea. I'm going to say 1,000 pounds.
Okay.
Geez, I don't think it would be that much. 550.
You are so close. 540 pounds of rainbow trout.
Nice.
Very
Well
nice,
done.
Chris.
If you were going to leave, this would be a
No,
high
but I
note
went
to
over. I went over, so I don't win.
Okay, that's true. All right. How about, this is a fun one. How many crickets do we feed in a given year?
This is individual cricket.
Yes.
God.
Crickets.
Yes.
30,000. 30,000.
Okay. So your guess is 30,000. You want to take a stab?
There's probably animals that eat that much in 1 year. One animal. I don't know. That's pretty tricky. Let's say 150,000 crickets.
In a given year, and I guess this number would actually be for last year, 1.2 million crickets.
But you got to remember, this is how many we bought.
Yeah, there's the ones that are running around on the 5th floor.
So
It's a different-
we're going to
There may
open
be a
it. We're
few
opening a
that-
cricket exhibit next year, I think.
Maybe a few that escaped or, yeah.
All right. What would be a fun one to end on, Kevin? One more.
This is not even fair.
Not.
I'm enjoying this.
No,
very
it's
much,
not
by the
fair
way.
at all.
This is like he's the dealer, right? He's
I
like
know.
I feel like the dealer.
you're dealing from the
Let's
bottom
go.
of the
Let's
deck.
go with a
Go ahead, you
rodent.
go.
Let's go with a rodent. How many mice do we feed?
That's a good one.
In a given year.
Does that include pinkies? Is that all mice?
Everything.
I think it's everything. Yeah.
I mean, I see the orders.
Does it include rats?
No.
Yes.
Rats
Yes, it does.
rats are a separate line item.
Okay, not rat. Oh,
Yeah, but they still come from the same place.
well, I know less now than when I
I
started.
say now he's clearly given the
we're asking
given the
almost
whole.
like we have any
I'm gonna say it's got to be something like 40 or 50 a week times 50 weeks, so 2,500 ish.
Okay, what do you think, Dr. Keller?
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty close. I'm going to go with. I might revert back to my 2501, but it's probably 3,000.
Okay, it's significantly higher. Kevin, why don't you tell him how many?
So we talk about mice or rats?
We're talking about mice.
Mice is 14,500.
Isn't that crazy?
You know,
And
I
rats
forget
is
the multiple
617
feeding. You know,
right?
they get 3 or 4 in one.
And 60 quail.
That's a good point.
60 quail.
60 quail for the alligators. We spend $10,000 a year on rodents. And
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our total food budget for last year. Do you know what the food budget is?
Well, yeah, our
That's not fair. You
food
wouldn't
budget
know
for the seafood side was I think it was $165,000.
That's just
somewhere in
seafood.
that neighborhood.
And
That's
produce is
just
probably
the
at least
produce.
as high.
we were 48,000
And produce.
including 34,000 is our estimate for produce this year, and 10,000 for rodents, and then we also have otter meat, which
that's
is
right.
another
We got the Omaha or whatever it is.
couple grand anyway. It's
Missouri.
actually $6,000.
To be clear, that is otter meat, as in meat fed to the otters.
Correct.
Not
Yes.
not
We're getting a big wrasse of otter meat.
not processed otter.
This is not
meat.
processed otter. This
Yeah,
is
no.
Just wanted to
this
be
is
very.
a
Needs to
zoo
be fed to the otters. That's
appropriate
correct,
diet.
Casey.
Just
diet
wanted-
Thanks for
otters.
clearing that up. For
Very
everybody.
clear about that before we end this
It's a
episode.
misplaced modifier there
I
somewhere.
kind of like that, though. Otter meat. Yeah.
All right. This has gone so thoroughly off the rails, but I think that's okay. It's holiday time. We're all having a good time. And I think we can go ahead and wrap up today's discussion about animal nutrition here at the aquarium. It's a big topic. We will probably revisit some aspect of this in greater detail down the road, but I thought what more fun topic could we talk about for Thanksgiving when we're all going to be stuffing ourselves stupid in about 24 hours than to talk about all the kinds of things that we feed our animals and how important that is to their well-being. So I will go ahead and issue my thanks to Kevin Calhoun, to Dr. Chris Keller, and Thom Demas for yet again being good sports and joining us here in the studio dive cage that is, our home away from home in Tom's office, I guess.
Yes.
So thanks to all of you for contributing to this and playing the fun game that Kevin and I had an unfair advantage in of guessing how much our animals eat.
I cheated.
Yeah, you did.
All right. Well, happy Thanksgiving to all of you out there in the Podcast Aquanaut Corps. Thank you for tuning into this episode. If you have an idea for a future episode of the podcast, go ahead and send that to me by email at podcast@tnaqua.org. While you're online, write us a review or leave us a rating on your podcast platform of choice. Those are great ways to support the show that don't cost you anything, even at this time of year when we should all be thinking about giving. All you have to give is a little 5-star rating. Don't give us less than that. That's bad for us. 5-star rating, or if you're feeling really generous, write us a review. Those are great ways to improve our play with the algorithm. That helps make sure that more people can hear the show. And in the meantime, until next time, remember that happy holidays and every drop matters.